Welcome into a brand new episode of the Patriots Hub Podcast. Alex, Barth, Matt Dolloff with you here from 98.5 thesportshub.com for our first of two Patriots training camp preview podcasts. That's right. By the time you're seeing this, we'll be a week away from Patriots training camp. Starts next Wednesday. Team will officially be on the field. There'll be some media availability on Tuesday as well. So here we are. Summer's over. School's back in session. Time to get back to it, Dolph.
Let me correct you real quick, Barth.
Yeah.
We're not a week away from training camp. We're a week away from football season.
That's true.
I know the Red Sox are playing great. I know baseball is as exciting as it's been in this town in years. Once the Patriots get camp going, it's football season.
And I think there's real anticipation for this team. I do think there is, especially because of the quarterback situation, which we will obviously get to. So what we're going to do, again, we have a two-parter for you. First episode dropping here today on Wednesday. The next one will drop tomorrow. That will be Thursday. So if it's Thursday after you watch this, you can go find that. We're just going to go position by position and kind of give our thoughts, specifically a camp preview, not so much a season preview. We'll get to that. I'm sure we'll do our annual Labor Day show again.
Yeah, we're going to do a 10-minute preview on all 90 players. That's what we're going to do.
So
quick 900-minute podcast.
Basically. That's more or less what this is going to be. We're going to go position by position. This pod will be offense. We'll have another one that's defense. And just kind of what we're looking for from each position individually getting in training camp. You ready to go?
Sure.
All right, let's start with an easy one, quarterback. And I'll remind everybody of the roster as they stand right now. Drake May, Josh Dobbs, Ben Woolridge. Obviously, they trade Joe Milton in the offseason. Jacoby Brissett leaves in free agency. And this, to me, is where the whole conversation starts. Like, this is the biggest story of training camp. Drake May, is he going to have a year two leap, yes or no? And unlike some other things, which we'll get to, I think we'll get an answer on this relatively quickly.
Yeah, no, I think this group is pretty much the group throughout the season. I think Ben Woolridge is your practice squad quarterback, for instance, barring injury or anything like that. I feel like this is one of the positions where obviously you don't want uncertainty at quarterback, but this is sort of a running theme, I think, of the way they built this roster, is they wanted to eliminate uncertainty as much as possible. And so, look, there are positions where there's uncertainty and competition and things like that, but Drake May's your starter. Josh Dobbs is the clear backup. Ben Woolridge is your training camp body and your scout team guy. Like, I think that's bing, bang, boom, perfect. We're good to go, and hopefully they all stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then I think when it comes to May specifically, what you're looking for, two things. One, the comfort in Josh McDaniels' offense, and then cutting down on the turnovers and bad decisions. And again, I think this is something we'll get an answer to relatively quickly. We saw in the spring, he started rough, and then by the end, he was at a pretty good point, and that was about 8-9 practices in total, not just the ones we saw. So I think within the first week, like, we'll know. I'll give him a day or two to kind of shake the rust off from this dead period, although he was throwing with the receivers, as we saw in those clips on social media the last few days. But I think we'll kind of know within a week, all right, he's good, he's rolling. We can talk about this year two leap, or all right, he's struggling. Is this just who he is? Is it switching to McDaniels' offense? Like, what's the issue? There's some other positions. We'll get to the offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to get a lot of hesitation from me early talking about the offensive line, which I think is justified. And again, we'll get to. Drake May, I'll feel pretty ready talking conclusively about pretty early in camp.
Yeah, look, the talent is pretty conclusive. We know he can throw. We know he can run. We know the physical ability is certainly there. It's the reason he was the third overall pick. It's the reason people view him as a franchise quarterback already, even though I would say there's a lot more that goes into that than just having the physical ability. But having that physical ability as a baseline gives you the potential. It gives him the high ceiling. And so we just need to find out how low the floor is, Barth. And that's what you're talking about with the turnovers and the ball security. And I want to take you back to what I thought was a good take you had when you were on Felger and Maz talking about spring workouts, where overall you gave him, I think, a C or a C minus, something like that. But he never had a C minus day.
Not really.
Like every day it was pretty much either an A, he had an F the day he threw 4 interceptions. He was a little all over the map, and so you wanted to be a little more consistent there, but that's just important to realize. It's important to remind people that it's not linear. Like, we come out of day one of training camp, and he throws 3 touchdowns. He doesn't turn the ball over. He looks efficient. Like, that's good, but we got to see him stack days. We got to see him do it more consistently. And the ball security is obviously a huge thing. Like, I know it's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it's so necessary to be a franchise.
It's a lot more exciting than watching 2 interceptions every week.
Look, yeah, I don't want this guy to be Jameis Winston 2.0. No. Like, I'm not going to care that he can throw the ball 80 yards and give you like a drop a dime for a touchdown if he's turning the ball over 2-3 times a game. And so that's going to be one of the first things we look for. And I know that's pretty hard to gauge when he's going up against, especially in a non-padded situation.
Yeah.
Like we might have to wait until September to really know like how much progress he's made in that department. But that's going to be, pretty much top of the list. If it's not at the top, it's pretty close to the top of the list is how Drake May is sort of managing the ball and managing the offense.
And look, the turnover number is not going to be zero. Whether we're talking about camp, whether we're talking about the regular season, like I understand that. And he's not going to be a guy like Aaron Rodgers that throws or who throws 6 picks in a season, or Tom Brady who throws 4 picks in a season. In season, to me, it's and the fumbles too, which we won't see as much in camp because you can't hit the quarterback. But can you keep it to a turnover per game? And for camp, you mentioned like it's not linear, which it's not, but also consistency is one of the last things generally that comes, but you don't want to see it from him. And so it's not linear, but you're also looking for some level of consistency on a day-to-day basis where it's not as up and down as he was in the spring.
Yeah, and I'm looking for signs, like little small signs where I talked about this with you on the radio over the weekend where, look, is there going to be a play where he rolls out and throws the ball away instead of trying to force it into traffic, which could have been an interception? Like little nondescript plays like that, they're not going to stand out to you huge like over the course of the day, but it's worth noting down where it's like, okay, he looks like he made a good decision there. He lived to see another down, which I think is a big part of playing winning football, especially at that position. And so that's we got to look for those little things out of Drake May, especially in those team drills.
Good on quarterbacks?
Sure.
All right. Running backs.
We're not doing a half hour on Josh Dobbs?
We're not doing a half. What are you looking for from Josh Dobbs, I guess? Like, it's not the Joe Milton experience, but he is an important player because Drake May did show a little bit of a tendency to get banged up last year. Is there any, like, he was kind of a gunslinger in the spring, which was sort of fun. We've talked about this, like the Brian Hoyer thing. Are you looking for that? Are you looking for him to be more controlled? Because I do think there's a chance we see some Josh Dobbs snaps this year. I hope it's not a lot, obviously, but just the way May plays, we saw it last year. What are you looking for from Dobbs?
Just be ready. Like, just prepare as if you're going to be the starter. Like, I think that's pretty important for backups in this league where, like, you never know when the guy's going to have to come out of the game. You got to be ready to come in, in the middle of the game. That's when a lot of backups have to come in the middle of the game. They're not going to get a lot of starts over the course of the season. Probably a meaningless game if that happens. So Josh Dobbs, I want him to just be ready to go in at a moment's notice. And we've seen that from him before.
Yeah.
He's come in as the backup and really excelled at times. Like, it's a short burst. Like, it's not going to be something you can sustain over the course of the season, most likely. But I just want him to, be diligent and prepare and be ready to go.
But I would hope part of that with him being an experienced backup is like, I want Drake last year, and we talked about this, and there were reasons for it, the splitting the reps. And how is Drake May going to be ready if he's, splitting all these reps with Jacoby Brissett and on and on? Obviously, he's not competing for the starting job, so he's going to get more reps, but I kind of hope Josh Dobbs can get himself ready, right? I want 85, 90% of the starting reps in this camp going to Drake May, at least. So
yeah,
Dobbs needs to get ready, but I think he's going to need to show an ability to get ready with limited opportunities.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the case. I think Drake May is going to get virtually all the snaps with the starters. I think Mike Vrabel wants to establish that. He doesn't want to have any even an illusion of a competition. Like we've been talking about competition.
Well, it's not even about competition. It's just about like to your point, the backup has to get ready too.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that without repping with the starters? It's just not something I would prioritize.
No, it doesn't have to be a priority, but just get him his reps in, like you were saying. Yeah.
All right, so that's quarterbacks. Unless you want to do 10 minutes on Ben Woodridge.
No. You've done enough on Ben Woodridge this whole summer, I think. Read it at 985thesportshub.com.
Running backs: Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, Travion Henderson, Terrell Jennings, and Travion Williams. We'll get and Land Larison. We'll get to Brock Lampy with the fullbacks. We're at the tight ends. He's a fullback.
These two Travions are confusing.
It's because they're spelled differently. It is. I've made that mistake a couple times already. What are you looking for from this group in camp?
Well, with Henderson, we got to see if he's there. Like that's I know a whole separate story, but this whole thing about the second round.
Well, remember we're pre-recording this podcast, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, just in case. But if you want more information on the second round holdouts, and Travion Henderson's not holding out, at least at the time we're recording this. It's 1:00, a little after 1:00 on Tuesday. If you want more on that, I wrote about it on 985thesportshub.com. Basically, the Texans gave their second round pick a fully guaranteed contract. So now none of the second round picks have signed because they all think, well, I'm a second round pick too, so why shouldn't I get one? So we'll see if he's there. If he is on the field, I think his usage is going to be really interesting. Him and Stevenson, do they go back to that early down passing down back role, which I hope they do? How does Stevenson look? Does he look fresh? those two to me are going to get the brunt of the work. I think Gibson's going to make the team. I think Larison's also going to make the team or have a good shot to make the team. But it should be Stevenson and Henderson. Like that's a 1-2 punch. That's a pretty well-rounded running back duo. I want to see how they're splitting those two guys up.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see how they're deployed. Like we've seen in recent years where a guy will get a drive and another guy will get a drive. Will they be used in all different situations? Now, I know Josh McDaniels does typically like to do the early down back and the third down back thing, but I mean, I don't know. Do they want to be a little less predictable? Like that was the thing that we always talked about, even in the Tom Brady years, like late in the Tom Brady era, especially. Like, can they be a little less predictable? Because once James White comes on the field, like you knew it was going to be a passing play. And I know Brady, it doesn't really matter. Like we know it's going to be a pass, but like with this offense, that might matter a little bit. So I'm curious to see how they split the reps between who's getting early downs and who's getting the passing downs, and whether they're mixing it up or whether they have one guy dedicated to early downs, one guy dedicated to third down. It's really the usage that I'm looking for with those guys.
Well, maybe it's more looks than the actual down, right? So if you're in a passing set using Henderson, and the thing is Henderson and Stevenson are both more versatile than LeGarrette Blount and James White, right? Like there's a more well-rounded skill set there. So I think you can come out in passing looks and still run the ball with Henderson and be more effective. He can also be more effective because part of it was when the Sony Michel, James White year 2018 is a lot of what you're talking about. They were really only under center with with Sony Michel. They're really only in the shotgun with James White. So Henderson can catch the ball from under center looks, and Stevenson can operate out of the shotgun even as a runner. So there's more flexibility within that. But I still think using Henderson in those opportunities where there's more game-breaking opportunities because of his speed, I still would like to see them lean on him there, where I think Stevenson, his workload needs to come down from where it was, sure, but I still think he's probably the guy that's going to get the most carries, that's going to be your bowling ball, that's going to put those body blows on the defense to open things up for Henderson. Because the big red flag with Henderson at Ohio State was his first 3 years when he was sort of a bell cow back. He had problems with injuries. He wasn't as effective. Last year, they go out, they get Quinshon Judkins in the transfer portal. Henderson still played a lot, but it wasn't nearly what he was doing, and he was incredibly more effective. So that's really the big thing for me, and this is more of an in-season thing than a camp thing. There's no need to run either of these backs into the ground. You have two guys who can make plays. And by the way, Antonio Gibson's not bad either. And then we'll see what happens with Lane Larison. So there's no reason. Ramondre Stevenson, I think 3-4 weeks into the year last year, was number 1 in the league in touches. I get somebody has to be there. There's no reason it should be a Patriots running back. I don't think a Patriots running back should be in the top 10. You're going to get more out of these guys by using them less and keeping them fresher.
Yeah, I think regardless of how they're deployed and like how they split up the carries, they're going to split up the carries. Yeah. I think it's going to be a committee of some kind. We saw that for years with Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady. I don't think that was just a Tom Brady thing. I think that's something that Josh McDaniels likes to do. And so, yeah, we could see a drive where, Henderson catches a pass out of the backfield, breaks off a big gain, tackled in the red zone. Here comes Ramondre Stevenson pounding the run to try to pound the ball in there. So we could see a lot of stuff like that. And to your point about Gibson, if I'm not mistaken, we saw him used in the 2-minute a little bit during spring workouts. Yes. So that's another one is who's on the field when they have to do hurry up 2-minute and like nobody's coming off the field. This guy is going to play every down on this particular drive. Like Gibson could be in the mix for that.
Gibson could be in the mix. That's where I want to see Henderson because he was so good in those situations at Ohio State. Yep. Now, he can do the receiving stuff. I don't doubt that. You have to be able to pass protect in those situations. So
and Henderson very, very good pass
protector. Well, in college, and that's one of the things
feels NFL ready.
It feels NFL ready, but I would say as far as skills go, translating from college to the pros, running back pass protection is one that can be a little more volatile. I'm not saying I don't think he can do it. I'm just saying I think that's probably something the coaching staff's going to want to see a little more in practice compared to just, okay, you were good in college, so we trust you here.
Like the Pittsburgh Steelers is a little different from Appalachian State or whatever.
So that'll be when the pads come on. We won't necessarily see that early, but like, is he, and this is to your point, because he was good in college, maybe it's something he can prove a little quicker than the average player would. But remember, McDaniels used to redshirt running backs because of pass protection. So once the pads come on, seeing Travion Henderson, okay, is he holding his own in pass protection? And if he's doing that, I think that really opens the door for him to play a lot as a rookie.
Yeah. I'm curious for him specifically, like how early do they work him into the mix? It feels like, he's a second round pick. Like I think Mike Vrabel personally looks at him, is like, "You're a high draft pick, man. Like, we took you at like 38th overall. Like, you're playing."
I think.
36?
30, no, 38. Because
late 30s, late 30s.
Yeah.
But like, yeah,
I
it's
have
like
36, 38, and 40 ingrained in my brain because it's Judkins, Henderson, and Shuck because of the whole second round pick holdout thing.
Well, we'll watch how those careers progress, so to speak.
Yeah,
but like, Vrabel strikes me as a guy who's like, you're playing, man. So I'm interested to see how early Henderson gets a big workload, because I think he will play a lot, but like how early are they going to work?
Sure. And to counter my own point about McDaniels liking a redshirt running backs, first round backs are generally an exception, and Henderson was very close to the first round. So, I think his role will evolve over the course of the season. I think the way he's used in September won't be the same as the way he's used in December. I think the role will grow as the season goes on, but how fast it grows, again, is going to be dictated by the floor he leaves in training camp. So that's your running backs. Wide receivers. Here we go. Long list. I'm just going to read these alphabetically because I'm going to miss somebody. Javon Baker, Demir Blankenship, Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, Efton Chisholm, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Matt Collins, John Giles, Jalen Polk, Jeremiah Webb, Kyle Williams. I'm going to start. There's a million different places we can start here. I'm just going to start with the biggest name. And just picking up from the spring, where is Stephon Diggs at? Where is he at physically? How's he moving? Is he involved in team drills? Where is he at in terms of picking up the offense? How real is that week one conversation? It changes a lot if Stephon Diggs is not just going to be, make the week one roster, because we talked about this on Sunday. Could Diggs make the week one roster, but maybe he's not ready to go until week 2 or 3, but they don't want to put him on PUP, so they don't have to wait until week 5, right? Not just is he healthy enough to make the week one roster, is he healthy enough to play week 1? Where is he at physically? Where is he at in his chemistry with Drake May? Where is he at in learning the offense? That, again, there's a million storylines of this wide receiver group. There's a bunch of good ones. I'm not saying the other ones aren't good. This is the big one to me.
Yeah, look, this is one of the only things that you could feasibly rank ahead of Drake May on the list of things to watch at training camp. Is like, what's his health level? What's his participation level? How does he look?
Talking about Diggs.
Diggs, yes. Yeah. Diggs physically, how does he look? How does he look running drills? Is he participating in the team drills? Is he like a full participant in the team drills as opposed to being sprinkled in like we saw in the spring workouts? And so, look, physically, he looks quick, maybe a little bit clunky with his footwork, like just a little rusty, I would call it. Not like he's lost a step or anything like that, but he looks quick. And so that was good to see. I think physically, just the fact that he can still move, just literally move, was a good sign. And so, yeah, I'm looking to see how he's being used. And so, like, assuming he's there and he's in there as like, the number one guy, he's participating fully. After him, Barth, like you just read off the names, they got like 8 more guys that could feasibly make the team. And then obviously they're not going to have that many receivers. And so that's what I've been saying for a while. And I feel like people always push back. Like people talk about like they have no receivers. It's like they have no number one receiver. They have no star receivers, but they have a lot of complimentary guys. Like I feel like they're going to have a decent mix of complimentary guys after Diggs. And like they're actually going to have some tough decisions and maybe some tradable players when it gets to the end of camp.
It's a competitive position, and that's because everybody's at a similar talent level. Now, that doesn't mean they're at the talent level that the team needs them to be, but like you said, there's 8-9 guys that could contend for roster spots. So you look at, I
mean, that's getting down to Javon Baker and Efton Chisholm, and like, look, I'm not ruling them out, but I would guess that they're not on the main roster, but like they're in the mix there.
So I think the locks are Diggs, assuming he's like not on PUP, right? Diggs is a lock. Pop Douglas is a lock. Kyle Williams, obviously, 3rd round pick. He's going to be here. I know we sort of disagree on Matt Collins. I just think they gave him enough money in the fact that he has that experience with McDaniels as a team captain. He can play a significant role on special teams. He's also kind of their only big receiver. Unless you think John Giles is going to make a push.
No.
If they don't keep Matt Collins, they're tiny at that position. So you put all that together. Does that mean Matt Collins is going to play a lot? Does that mean he's going to be top 4 in the depth chart? No. But I consider Matt Collins a lock. I think those 4 guys are the locks.
Yeah, look, they don't have a 6'4" receiver if they don't have Matt Collins, right? But like I'm a sizeist, but I've been talking about the sweet spot, right? I think 6 feet, 6'1" is sort of a sweet spot at receiver. And so you got Diggs, you got Bourne, you got Jalen Polk, Jalen Baker. They're all in that range. And so I'm not as concerned about the size. Maybe this is just a semantics thing, Barth, but we've talked about this a million times. Like my list of locks is usually shorter than most other people's because for any number of reasons, Diggs could have another boat video come out and like
Sure.
something bad happens with him. You never know. Bulk and Baker and Polk, rather, they're not. I wouldn't say either of them are close to locks. Not even safe bets. I wouldn't say Kendrick Bourne is a lock, even though he's been here for years.
Well, so let's do this.
I think Kyle Williams might be the only true 100%. Nothing's going to happen to this guy. He's in.
I'd put Pop Douglas in that too.
He's close. Like, I would say Pop Douglas is a safe bet.
Well, similar to what I said about Matt Collins, if you move on from Pop Douglas, it's going to be slow. It's a slow group. Like, Kyle Williams can move, but he's a rookie, so you don't really know what his deal is.
And especially, you need that slot receiver, the short area quickness, the explosiveness after he catches the ball. Like, look, I think Pop Douglas is in. I just don't know 100%. That's all. Maybe it's just semantics.
So those four guys are locks or close to locks. And then you have what I think is the really competitive group for that fifth spot, which is Kendrick Bourne, Kayshon Boutte, and Efton Chisholm. And some of that is, and I think more than one player from that group can make the team. I think it's possible they keep 6 receivers. They could maybe even keep 7. We'll get to that. But, I think Boutte had the best year last year. He can play the X. He's not a true X, but he can play the X, which you don't have a ton of guys that can do that. It's probably Matt Collins and Kyle Williams. You have Kendrick Bourne, who has good chemistry with Drake May, who has experience with Josh McDaniels' offense, who can be a veteran in that room. I know people are going to yell at me and say he was a veteran in the room last year when it fell apart. I think part of the problem was he wasn't as involved. I think it's actually his absence was part of the reason that fell apart. You had other guys like KJ Osborne play a bigger role while Bourne was rehabbing that ACL. And then you have Efton Chisholm, who is, look, he hasn't had a single padded practice in the NFL, so I'm not going to put him on the roster yet. I'm not, but he did about as well as you could ask a UDFA to do early on. He's a tremendous fit stylistically in the offense. Like, he's going to be in the mix. I think it's those 3 guys realistically competing for 1 or 2 spots. I don't think any of those 3 guys get cut. Now,
that's sort of to my point. Where like, what are they going to do with these guys?
Do they find a trade partner for Kayshon Boutte?
Yeah.
Do they find a trade partner for Kendrick Bourne? Something like that. Does Efton Chisholm might if he falls off in camp? I guess I should say that.
Yeah.
I don't think Bourne or Boutte are getting cut. I think it's do they find a trade partner for one of them if they want to keep Kayshon Boutte, Efton Chisholm? Then we'll get to that next tier in a second.
Yeah. Well, first, Boutte is arguably the most interesting one to watch here because last year he emerged as a viable target in the offense, and Drake May felt like he trusted him. He hit him for a number of big plays. I believe was it against Buffalo in Buffalo where Boutte caught the touchdown? Like, and it was an absolute dime from Drake May down the right sideline. Like, that was Boutte. Like, he trusts him to throw through some tight windows down the field, and so like I don't know that he's not going to make the team. Like, I feel like, you look at him, he's not maybe as talented as a guy like Stephon Diggs or Pop Douglas. He hasn't been here as long as Kendrick Bourne, maybe not as quite as, steady as Kendrick Bourne is. But this is a guy that, like, May likes him, and he looks for him down the field. And so, like, if he has a good camp, he's going to make a really strong case for himself. And I know, like, that's why I feel like they could find a trade partner for him. Right. It doesn't feel like a guy that's just going to get outright cut. And I'm not saying they're going to get much in return for Kayshon Boutte. It might just be a late round pick swap or something like that. But this is a guy where I feel like he's either on the team or traded.
Yeah,
like there's a number of guys like that. Like you said, Bourne, Pop Douglas. I think he's here, but I feel like if they didn't want it, if he wasn't part of their plans, they could find.
They'd get something for him. Yeah.
So that's sort of my point. Is that like they got a lot of guys here that should be on an NFL roster at some point, but not enough spots to put them anywhere. And so it's going to depend on who sort of rises to the top in the middle over the course of camp.
Well, so then you have the 2 guys. I'll actually say one more thing on Kayshon Boutte. Part of the reason I think he could be the traded guy, yes, May likes him and he had that success last year. There were some rumors about him around the combine. He doesn't have the ties to the coaching staff like some of these other guys do. Obviously, like Bourne wasn't brought in by this current group, but he's played for McDaniels, right? And Efton Chisholm was their guy. They found him, and Boutte's just kind of on the outside looking in.
Right. And Pop Douglas doesn't have the ties, but he's better.
But he's just good, right? He's just good. So I'm not saying that Boutte's worse. I'm just saying that if there's going to be somebody's going to have to be the odd man out, he doesn't have that work in his favor. But he belongs on an NFL roster. Like you said, all these guys we've named, Chisholm kind of being his own weird little thing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to say real quick before we move on.
Yeah.
Chisholm, look, he looks great playing with the 2s. but he was with the twos.
He's-
And look, looking like a man.
He got a couple reps with the ones.
A couple, yeah, but that's a couple reps. Like 98% of the time he was with
Well,
the
I
twos.
just think it's notable that a UDFA over the course of the spring worked his way all the way to getting starting reps. Like
Sure.
that shows he's not just your typical UDFA.
Right, well, this is the point I'm making,
Yeah.
is that if you look like a man among boys playing with the twos, there's a good chance that you're, an NFL caliber
player,
receiver. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to stick on this depth chart, but Chisholm seems like a guy where, like, if he carries over into camp, like, he might not stay here, but he could end up somewhere else. Like, I feel like this is a guy we're going to see in the NFL.
Sure. Yeah. And so, like you said, like, these guys all belong in the NFL, whether or not they'll be here. And then there's that next group, which is, are they NFL players? And it's really two guys. It's Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And where are they at? And Polk,
The iconic draft class.
hey, Polk has to get healthy, right? If he's going to miss time in camp because of that shoulder, now maybe he misses enough time that he doesn't get cut because he opens the season on PUP, and they just kind of stash him and wait and see what happens, right? That's a possibility. He's got to get healthy. I actually think he's a decent fit for McDaniel's offense stylistically.
Yes.
If he can be the player we thought he was going to be and not the guy he was last year. Javon Baker, I just think, is on the outside looking in. He's going to have a really hard time, and he's going to have to really impress early in camp in order to get the reps later in camp to make a true roster push. Because right now, I don't even know, like, you can light it up with the threes all you want. If that's all you're doing, that's probably not enough to make the team. He's going to have to do enough early to earn more reps with the starters, because I think as it is right now, he's not going to get a ton of those, to get those starting reps, to then prove in those starting reps he belongs on the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he had that moment during spring practices where he made a big catch and, hot dogged his way down the sideline before hustling back to the huddle.
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel was not happy with that. He talked with him. You saw him walking off the field talking to him about it after practice. And I just feel like he's not going to make enough plays to really justify that sort of behavior / character, if you want to call it. Call it football character. I don't know what he's like off the field or anything like that, but I just don't know that he's going to have the consistency. Like, we know the physical ability, like he has the ability to make plays, but like, is he going to show up every day, every snap? Like, I just don't really see it with Baker. So like, if they find a trade partner for Javon Baker, that's great news to me. That would be amazing. And Polk, like, that's not a guy that I'm giving up on. Like, I know people quick to give up on him because last year was such a disaster, but I almost want to write off the entire season last year. You got to write almost everything off with that Gerard Mayo year. We got to almost pretend it didn't happen. This is almost like another rookie year for Jalen Polk. And to your point, like, he fits this offense as a possession receiver. If he's the kind of guy that we thought he could be coming into the league, and even he kind of looked like that in the preseason. That one good start that Drake May had, like, Polk made a couple of plays in that game, and it looked like, okay, they might have a little connection coming here. And obviously it went entirely in the opposite direction with Polk, but I'm not giving up on him. Yeah, of course it depends on him staying healthy. We might have a Duke Dawson situation if he can't get on the field, like, they're trading away or getting rid of a former second-round pick. But I'm not giving up on Jalen Polk. He feels like a guy that should fit, even if it's just like the fourth receiver. And like, it's funny, I thought of Felger and Maz again, because they had a debate where it's like, would you take Kendrick Bourne or Jalen Polk? And I think Maz was the only one saying Polk. Everyone else was saying Bourne, Polk. I'm going Bourne in that situation because I think at the end of the day, Jalen Polk is just a complimentary receiver. So give me the proven player.
Right.
So if that's what it comes down to, and it's like we got to pick between Bourne and Polk, I would go Bourne personally.
I would too.
But I think Polk is firmly in the mix here as long as he's healthy and he's able to, participate in the team drills. I'm not giving up on him just yet.
All right, tight ends. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Jaheim Bell, CJ Dupree, G. Scott Jr., Jack Westover, and then I said we'd get back to Brock Lampy at fullback in here. But just on the tight ends, what are you looking for from this group?
Well, I mean, the minor thing is that who's going to block, because I don't know that Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper give you quite enough as blockers. I know they're going to have to at some point, but there might have to be plays where they're running 12 personnel and they got to have their pass catcher and their blocker in there. They haven't had much success with Henry and Hooper being like, the lead blockers, and I feel like it's probably worth it to put a blocking tight end in there.
Yeah, well then that's CJ Dupree then.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at Dupree, and if he can make just enough catches, like who was the Mitchell Wilcox?
Sounds right. Yeah,
is that the guy they had last year?
Well, so I've compared him to Dwayne Allen.
Dwayne Allen.
If
Okay.
you remember from those Super Bowl teams.
Yes, of course.
I think they threw the ball to 4 times, but he was a hell of a blocker, and he got the job done.
Yeah, no, look, yeah, so that's a minor thing I'm looking for, but like Henry and Hooper, I feel like those guys are pretty steady. I'm looking for Henry to establish himself as a third down red zone guy. Like I feel like we've been waiting for that for a while. I know that the quarterbacks and the offensive coordinators, like the situation around Henry has been pretty chaotic, but like I really need him to establish himself as like a reliable third down seam red zone, like the typical tight end that you expect in a Josh McDaniels run offense. And Hooper is kind of a bonus if he could be a solid number 2. I know he made a few plays last year. I don't necessarily like need him to be on the roster. I'm looking for Henry to really be the guy in that position.
I wouldn't be surprised if Hunter Henry's the most targeted player in this training camp. Like we saw it a little bit in the spring when things start to get shaky for Drake May. That's who he's going to. He's been that safety valve. I think he'll continue to do that. The third tight end battle to me is interesting. What do they want? Do they want the blocker? Do they want more of a pure pass catcher? Now you're talking about G. Scott and Jack Westover. Do they want an H-back? That would be Jaheim Bell. Are they going to keep an H-back and a true fullback? I find it hard to believe Josh McDaniels is not going to have that traditional lead blocking James Devlin, Jakob Johnson fullback on the roster.
Yeah, Lampy's in.
Right. So right now that's Brock Lampy. And I hear people say, well, Jaheim Bell can play some fullback. He can. But that's more that Kyle Juszczyk style. That's more that H-back hybrid tight end thing. And Lampy did a little bit of that at NIU. So if they want that, is there a world where they could keep Lampy and Jaheim Bell? Maybe, if they want the fullback and the H-back. I think
he wants to throw Lampy the ball. A la James Devlin, Michael Omanawinui.
Right.
Like occasionally this guy gets wide open. They split him out wide because they're not ready for it, and he gets a catch.
So I think Lampy's on. I don't think it's Bell versus Lampy for the fullback job because they play that position so differently. So we'll see, and maybe they both make it. I wouldn't sleep on Jack Westover making a push. It just seemed in the spring like they liked him. He was a good player at Washington. He dealt with some injuries. That probably is part of the reason he went undrafted. Not all of it. He's a little bit on the smaller side for a tight end, but
he made a few catches in spring training, with spring workouts. It was with Dobbs, I believe, but
he got a little bit of run with the ones, mostly in running situations. I wonder if they want to see where he's at as a blocker. But he's got some athleticism. He's got good hands. Just a guy to keep an eye on. I wouldn't rule out. Let me put it this way: he'll be here on the practice squad if he doesn't get claimed. I think they like him. I think he'll be here. Whether or not he gets a 53-man roster spot.
Yeah, my sense is Mike Daniels is going to want, who could do the most as one individual player. I think, and Lampy is a true fullback. And so, I feel like I'd give him the edge as long as he can, make one catch occasionally.
Right. Well,
I feel like he has the edge over the other.
They could keep 3 tight ends and a fullback. I'm not ruling that one out.
That would be very McDanielsy.
If they only view Bell as a fullback, I don't think they're keeping Bell and Lampy and 3 tight ends, right? I don't think they're doing that. So,
and Bell is another one with a relative lack of connection to the coaching staff too.
22 draft, 23 draft?
23, I want to say.
Yeah, so a little more on the outside looking at. All right, offensive line. We'll wrap it up here. This crowded group, another big group. I'm just going to read all of them, and then we can get into the individual positions. Garrett Bradbury, Ben Brown, Marcus Bryant, Mekhi Butler, Will Campbell, Jack Connolly, Yasir Durant, DeMontre Jacobs, Vidarian Lowe, Morgan Moses, Mike Onwenu, Layden Robinson, Tyrese Robinson, Sidney Cole Strange, Caden Wallace, and Jared Wilson.
Take a breath.
Let's start with the tackles, because I want to remind everybody of 2 things. One, even though there are questions at the tackle position, and there are questions, we're so far ahead right now where we were last year talking about this tackle position. Because we know Will Campbell's the starting left tackle, Morgan Moses starting right tackle. There's questions that come with that. Will Campbell, I know the arms, but it's just like any rookie is going to have questions. Morgan Moses is 35 years old, continues to be a good player, continues to stay on the field, but when you get to that age, there's inherent questions that come with it. We didn't even know who the starting tackles were going to be last year. It was, all right, well, they signed Chooks Okorafor. They said that they're not going to play him on the left side, but they want to play Mike Onwenu at right tackle. So does Chooks move sides to left, but they also have Vidarian Lowe, who can play the left because he can't play the right because he was bad at that last year. But then what if you move Mike Onwenu inside? Then is it Chooks on the right and Vidarian Lowe on the left? And they drafted Caden Wallace, and they might cross-train him, and he can play on the left side. But they might need to play him on the right side because who goes to the left? And by the way, the guy who ultimately started at right tackle, DeMontre Jacobs, was a Denver Bronco that whole time. So we're so far ahead of that. So we'll see what happens at tackle, I want to actually start here. I mentioned I was going to have this caveat for the offensive line. We're not going to know for like 2 weeks. I don't really care what happens in the non-padded practices. And Mike Vrabel said he doesn't really care in terms of player versus player evaluation. Yes, you want to make sure guys are handling their assignments correctly. But, if Will Campbell gets beat on an inside move by Kayvon Chase on the first day of camp, I'm not going to care a ton. If Will Campbell stonewalls Keon White the entire first practice, I'm not going to care a ton because they're not really doing it without pads on. So we're not going to get definitive answers on that early on, but we will obviously be watching those guys, Campbell and Moses, to see where they're at. And there is a position battle here because as screwed as they were at starting tackle last year, backup was also a question. We don't know who the backups are going to be, right? You'd think, okay, both of last year's starting tackles are back, but those guys can only play one side. Neither one is a swing tackle. So does Jack Connolly make a push? Does Marcus Bryant make a push? Yasir Durant, who they signed. Like, that's going to be a real competition. Who are the backup tackles?
Yeah, and look, the tackle spot is another one where I think Mike Vrabel wanted to eliminate uncertainty as much as he could. And so I know we went into the draft not knowing who the left tackle was going to be, but once it became clear and obvious they're going Will Campbell, and then we go to spring workouts and Will Campbell is the starting left tackle every snap. It's like, okay, he's the guy. And, we'll see how they perform. And like you said, it's going to take a little while to really judge them on performance. But I do care about, like, I'm not saying you don't care, but like you just say you don't care like how they play or like how the results of it.
When I say I don't care, I mean like if Will Campbell has a rough start and then he comes out and he's awesome when the pads come on, I'm not going to be there. I'm not weighing those two things the same. Yeah. It's going to be, okay, the pads came on, he was good. What happened before isn't really that important. And vice versa. If he's really good before the pads come on and then the pads come on and he's getting beat and he's getting put on his ass, I'm not going to fall back on, well, he was good last week when the pads weren't on, because that's not real football. So when I say I don't care, that's what I mean. It's just they're not weighted remotely evenly to me.
Right. So like what we're really going to be looking for, prior to the pads going on is who's being used where.
Yes.
Especially not at the tackle spots. We're assuming it's going to be Campbell and Moses, the backups for sure. That was, a little more shuffled around, a little less certainty there. But who's playing where? And like, how are they being deployed? How are they being utilized? Like, we saw guys, run out in the open field and block. We saw a lot of pulling. We saw a lot of gap running game. So like, that's another thing that's like, we'll see when the pads come on as far as how they perform. But just like, how are they being used? I think is what we're going to be looking for early on.
We'll get a good idea early on what that's going to do. I shouldn't say it. I don't care. That was probably a bad way to phrase that. But
no, it's fine. It's hot take land.
We'll get an idea that first week of, okay, this is kind of how they view everybody before the competition starts. These are the favorites. So these are the guys that need to make up ground, right? We'll get an idea of how the coaching staff views everybody. And then when the pads come on, it's, okay, well, this guy was the second guard before the pads came on. But boy, since the pads come on, he's been better than the guy who was first earlier. So is he maybe going to pass him? Mm-hmm. That's when we start talking about really shuffling the depth chart. And the other thing, and you brought this up on Sunday, it was a good point. Like you can look at, all right, wow, that guy clearly blew an assignment, right? Pads on or not, still be in the right place at the right time. So that's what you're looking for early on.
Yeah, and look, Will Campbell's not a guy that I'm worried about after spring workouts. Like, that's a guy that, the book on him was that he's a very smart player and he can handle a combo block and things like that. He's really going to be caught completely out of position or blowing an assignment or anything like that. The concerns with him are mostly physical as opposed to mental. And so I'm not too worried about him, which is like kind of funny where it's like the rookie left tackle starting day one with arm length concerns. And I'm like the least concerned about him as far as, everyone else. And so left guard is the spot that like, that's the one spot where there's uncertainty and there's going to be a competition, probably some shuffling around. So like who's out there first rep with the starters? Like that's going to be interesting.
Who do you think?
I would bet on Cole Strange.
I think it's going to be Cole Strange. I don't think that means Cole Strange necessarily is going to be the starter by the end of this.
Just he's going to be there first snap. Yeah.
The real competitors to me at left guard are there's like tiers of this. Cole Strange, Barth's tiers. Cole Strange and City So, right? I think those are your top two options. I'm a little surprised Layden Robinson is not in there, but based on what we saw in the spring, he's maybe more on the outside looking in than we thought.
Yeah, I think they're being patient with him. Like, I think last year he was sort of rushed in, and maybe it was out of necessity to some degree. But he clearly had work to do as a pass protector, and obviously with Drake May, you're going to want to pass protect.
Yes.
And so I think they're trying to be patient with him and Caden Wallace as much as they can. I feel like those guys could still be long-term options, long-term answers for them. We just don't need to see them, this year.
Well, so Caden Wallace is another guy. They worked him at guard a little bit in the spring.
Yeah.
So I said, the top two contenders for me are Cole Strange and City. So there's a couple other guys who are on my radar. Tyrese Robinson got some snaps in the spring at starting left guard. And he was here last year, so maybe he factors in. Layden Robinson, Caden Wallace, cross-trained at guard a little bit in the spring. If they want to get him reps, get him out there. He is kind of built a little more like a guard. And look, he was a third-round pick. If you get a starting left guard in the third round, that's not the worst outcome in the world. So if he ends up being your starting left guard in a solid one, that's okay. Yasir Durant, who's mainly been a tackle as a pro, has played a little bit of guard, just has more experience. As he factor in the UDFA, Jack Connolly, they were using him everywhere in the spring. They seem to like him. So I feel like they'll probably give him a run at competing for that spot, whether or not he gets it. Again, I think there'll be a few players he has to pass, but he's somebody to watch. And then the last one that a lot more people are more excited about than I am is Jared Wilson.
Yeah.
If Jared Wilson's good enough to start, he should be your starting center. You look at the way Garrett Bradbury kind of fell off last year. If he has another year like that, and I also just think Jared Wilson's a really good player. I want him developing at center. I want him getting that chemistry with Drake May, all of that. If you need in a pinch, if he's not your starting center and somebody gets hurt in a game and you need to throw Jared Wilson out there at guard, I think he could do it. But in terms of player development, they spent so much time last year cross-training linemen. It was their number one priority that it hurt them because guys didn't get to work enough in the positions they ultimately played. And I understand you want to be prepared, but you can cross-train to a fault. I think Jared Wilson's the future starting center of this team. Let him work there. Let him prepare there. They have enough other options at left guard that they shouldn't need to put Wilson there.
And that's another thing with Vrabel. I think he's minimizing uncertainty across the roster as much as he can. I think he's also trying to minimize, experimenting, trying guys all over the field.
There's a difference between versatility and cross-training, too.
Right.
Let me be clear about that.
Right. And I don't think he wants to, tinker with guys out of position too much.
Right.
I think he wants Wilson to prepare as a center and put him in as a guard, almost like a backup quarterback or like a backup, whatever. Just be ready for that if you really need you, but you're our center. And yeah, Wilson, I think it's just a matter of when. I wasn't impressed at all with Bradbury.
Let me put you on the
camp.
timeline here.
Yeah.
By the end of camp, yes or no?
I'll say yes.
I'm not ruling it out.
Say yes.
Assuming he's healthy, and Mike Reese kind of wrote about this on Sunday, and he was dealing with something in the spring that held him out. If he's not healthy at the start of pads, it's probably not going to happen. But if Jared Wilson's fully healthy, I think he can catch Garrett Bradbury by the end of camp.
Assuming health, yeah, I think Wilson's in because I haven't been impressed at all with Garrett Bradbury. He's never been a great pass protector. And I get it, he's technically an upgrade over last year because he can actually snap the ball.
So I get the joke you're making because last year in camp, they couldn't get the ball back to the quarterback. Ben Brown's not a bad backup center. He's really not. And he's more in the mix than people are giving him credit for. I also wonder with Bradbury, this is a guy that's been a starter for 6 or 7 NFL seasons. He was a first-round pick. He's never been a backup. Is this one of those cases? The high-profile example of this, and this is an extreme example compared to what we're talking about, Cam Newton was never backing up Mac Jones, right? It didn't make sense. Cam Newton was not a backup quarterback. It was either he was going to win that job or he was going to get cut. And I do wonder if there's an element of that with Garrett Bradbury, where if Jared Wilson wins the job, Bradbury going to stay and back him up? Or is he going to say, no, I can go somewhere else, compete for a starting job, let me go, trade me. And now he's your backup center. I know some people will go to Cole Strange, but if Cole Strange, you're starting left guard, it's more complicated than that. Now Ben Brown's right back in the mix. Right.
Yeah,
so
I look at Garrett Bradbury as a guy who would be better for a contending team or just a team with more established talent on the offensive line. I could see him going to Philadelphia maybe and competing with Cam Jurgens there or for whatever. But a team that doesn't have a certainty at that position, but they have talent at guard.
Or we've seen guys do this. You sit out the first month, somebody gets hurt, right? Now you're on speed dial, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't see him sitting on the bench here anyway.
Yeah, so Ben Brown still one to watch. I think that just about does it for the offense. Offensive coaching staff, I guess we should say. I'm interested to watch Todd Downing with the wide receivers, just given he's never coached that position before. And, of course, everything that comes with the wide receiver position of the Patriots the last decade. So McDaniels, it's cool that he's back, and it'll be fun to see what his offense is. I don't know that like training camp, how does Josh McDaniels operate? How does he do this? We kind of know how Josh McDaniels is going to run his offense in training camp at this point. I don't think there's too much mystery there. I know he says he's changed and he went to these other schools, and there'll be some of that, but it's Josh McDaniels. We kind of know.
Yeah, no, it won't be radically different the way he runs things. I think that we'll see plays from time to time where it's like, I haven't seen that before from Josh McDaniels, new wrinkles in the actual play calling and the design and things like that. But, I think we're generally going to be screaming at our TVs on a third down from time to time. Why did you throw the backwards pitch on 3rd and 1? I know I like to scream at him about that. But we're going to see him spread the ball around. I know he likes to run the ball and use the fullback, and they're going to do the power run thing. But on 3rd down, I think he's going to want them to target either the slot receiver, a guy at the sticks, tight end down the seam. Like, we're going to see a lot of familiar stuff from McDaniels. I think they have the personnel to pull it off, assuming they can block it. That's going to be interesting. And Downing is the one that I've been talking about all summer. He's never actually been a receivers coach, and they asked him about it. He's like, well, I know football. That's like, I get it, football, but like maybe you're more of a coordinator than a specific position coach. It's almost like they need Stephon Diggs to be like that assistant wide receivers coach. Because what if a guy's like doing something's off with a guy's footwork and things like that, and like he might need like Diggs and guys like that to step up and like speak up about things.
We're down just to not to dump on Todd Downing too much. Like where he's going to be a major benefit is, I think it gets overplayed that Josh McDaniels' offense is so hard for players to pick up, but it's also not true to say it's easy. Like it's hard. It's not as hard as it's made out to be, but it's hard. I think he's going to do a really good job of translating and teaching the offense to the receivers, especially the younger receivers. They are going to understand the concepts. They're going to understand their assignments. I think he will do a good job with that. But when it comes down to honing in footwork, right, working on hands and just technique, right?
Yeah.
The ins and outs technique, that's where getting an assistant wide receivers coach, a guy like Wes Welker or somebody who has more experience with that, they don't have that guy. It does that ultimately end up being Diggs and maybe to an extent Mac Hollins and Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're hoping for at this point. That's where they're maybe lacking.
Yeah, wasn't there something recently where Kendrick Bourne and Josh McDaniels, or maybe just Bourne, were working with Kyle Williams?
Yeah, there's a clip on him. He was explaining how McDaniels likes certain routes run.
Yeah, exactly. So like they might need the veteran players to really chip in a little bit with the coaching there. And to your point, like it's hard. The hard part is like the precision and the timing.
Yeah.
Like you got to be precise with your routes and your timing and all that. And so like, if it's not totally crisp, like I don't know that Todd Downing's the one that's going to step in and fix that. And so that's going to be something to watch.
Yeah. Well, it's some of the site adjustment stuff too is where it can be a little more, the X and O's can get a little more overwhelming. And that's something I think he can help. But yeah, like if it's, you need to get out of this break quicker, that's not something he's coached before. He can say you need to get out of the break quicker. I'm sure he'll recognize that. How do you do it? Look, you're always relying on veterans to help the younger players. Like that's not uncommon. And it's very common, I should say, in the NFL for the veterans to kind of help round out some of the technique stuff.
It's common, but it's not exactly like the plan.
Right. You don't want to lean on that as the be all and all of it. So, But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe sometimes they add a coach late in camp, a coach or two late in camp. So maybe we get out there Wednesday and there's somebody else. Who knows? So that's our offensive preview for training camp. And we did like almost 50 minutes on that. It's pretty good.
Dear Lord. We got a whole half of a roster to get to still.
Yeah, we'll have the defense, and this is why we're breaking it up because we didn't want to do a 2-hour podcast.
Do an intermission here.
Yeah, we're gonna record the defense one after this. So the offense one, if you watch the first day, it's Wednesday. Congratulations. If not, this posted on Wednesday. The defense one will be posted next day, Thursday. So you can go check that out in the future or right now, depending on when you are watching this.
Well, future people are going to be very confused.
Yes, just subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube page. You'll get all of it. I should say watch or listen. I'm so used to the YouTube thing. I'm looking right at the camera right now. Subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube page to get notified when all this stuff gets posted. Subscribe to the Patriots Hub Podcast wherever you get your podcasts to get notified when this all gets posted.
Please.
985thesportshub.com as well for more coverage from Matt and myself. We'll have some training camp preview stuff. I have my first a preview-ish thing, I guess. It's more of an off-season recap than a training camp preview, but that'll be dropping on Friday. You can check that out. Matt, you'll have some stuff on the way as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have some training camp previews, just things to watch, players to look for.
So we'll have all that coming later this week and into next week. And, of course, our coverage starting on Wednesday, and the Hub will be there broadcasting live. And I have to do, like, the same outro for the next one, too, I feel like, to make sure we get the same energy. So I gotta remember all that.
It's got to be seamless. It's like we're making a double album. This is like the wall.
All right. So until the next one, which we will be recording in 5 minutes and you will listen to sooner tomorrow, he's Matt Dolloff. I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.